This interview is brought to you by my sponsors who help keep me in business, and when you go support them, you support keeping interviews like this coming on my channel. So first, if you love wine, go to AllisonWinePromo.com and get some amazing Malbecs from Argentina. These are high-altitude Malbecs. One is an extreme altitude Malbec from almost 9,000 feet. You get 50% off the wine itself and 50% off shipping. However, if you are a coffee or a tea drinker, you can also go to twinenginecoffee.com/Allison and check out a wide variety of USDA certified organic high altitude roasts from Nicaragua. There is a dark roast. There is a limited black edition. There's also a Caturra tea. If you're a tea drinker, it's a lot like a black tea. So go check both of them out, support my work, and let's start this interview. All right, here with Katherine Henry, who is a constitutional attorney, and the woman in this video. Katherine, why don't you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, so you can see there's a petition being circulated, kind of depending on where you are in the video, but there's a petition being circulated there. It was the Restore Freedom Initiative petition. It was a constitutional amendment petition to change the Michigan state constitution so that there would be concrete consequences when government officials tried to go rogue. I actually wrote that petition, and we had thousands of petition circulators all across the state. I was the lead attorney. So on Election Day 2020, the day in this video, I went out to respond to two circulators who were being threatened with being arrested for trespassing because they were circulating the petitions. I had tried to resolve the issue over the phone with the deputy, and he was either an incredibly profound idiot, or there was just some sort of miscommunication. So I'm deaf in one ear. I thought maybe maybe we're not hearing each other correctly. Maybe there's something. I said, you know what, I'm going to just print all the statutes, all, the constitutional provisions, everything, and I will come down there. We'll just talk about it in person. It was like maybe 45 minutes or an hour away. And he said, okay, I'll be here when you get here. So I took the time to prepare everything, make copies, whatever, come all the way down. And once I got there, he wasn't there immediately. He had to respond to another call, but he came back, and he immediately was threatening everybody with arrest, and then turned it specifically to me. Didn't want to talk about the law, didn't want to talk about the Constitution, didn't even want to talk about the township's resolution that he claimed said we couldn't be there. It actually said we could, but so he ended up calling for backup. There were 3 deputies there involved by the time everything was said and done. The chief prosecuting attorney for Allegan County had also been consulted directly. And within a matter of minutes from all 3 of them being there, they brought the township clerk out so she could tell me that we weren't allowed to be there. I asked all of them to just look at the language of the resolution, or to let me have 5 minutes to talk to them about the law. I wasn't even the one really circulating the petition. I was the one that wrote it. But my daughter, my then 6-year-old daughter, was in the car, and she was seeing the whole thing. She was 10 feet away from me. And we had stuff we had to do. I had other circulators at other polling precincts that needed guidance and help on how to handle some situations. So I was prepared to, spend a few minutes here and then head on. Well, what I'm pointing to there in the video is that's the building where people were voting. And consistent with United States Supreme Court precedent, I don't like the term case law because law is not made by judges. But anyway, considering precedent, Michigan state law says you have to be at least 100 feet away from the door to a polling precinct if you're going to try to campaign for a particular issue on the ballot, or a candidate, if you want to try to collect signatures, any kind of politicking. You have to be at least 100 feet away from the door. So I was pointing in the video there that in the prior scene where that white car had pulled out way farther than where these 2 sheriff's deputies' vehicles are seen now, way on the other side of those is where that 100-foot line is. We were 228 feet away. There was no no contesting that we were far enough away. They just thought, they literally told me that the township property was private property. It's a township hall, it's a township library, and it's an election place. All of those, the public has an inherent interest in having access to. But they said that it was private property, and the township clerk could throw us off the property if she wanted to.
Yeah, I was just reading that her quote in the paper is, "You may not leave a vehicle on township property any time beyond the time necessary to transact township business." That's the quote.
Yeah,
What
so
does that
it's
even
funny.
mean?
Exactly. First thing about that is I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. So the courts, when they interpret a law or a resolution or an ordinance or anything, you have to, the courts say you have to interpret that resolution or ordinance or whatever in a light that would make it constitutional, right? So you can't try to stretch it so it's not constitutional. Well, with that in mind, if you read the resolution, the township's resolution says, you can't, she's talking about paragraph 3. There's only 4 paragraphs in this whole stupid thing. And I'm trying to get her to read it right now. And she had said, well, paragraph 3 says you can't be here longer than the time it takes to transact township business. Paragraph 4 said, but nothing in this resolution is meant to interfere with the right of people to, basically circulate petitions or do their politicking outside of the 100-foot mark. So that's what I'm pointing to her right now. And she's like, oh, no, paragraph 3 has nothing to do with paragraph 4. And I'm like, literally, paragraph 4 says you can't use any of this resolution to stop us from exercising the rights we have. Anyway, so we were kind of going in circles about that. She claims, apparently, that the only township business is voting. Well, that's just stupid, because you clearly have a constitutionally protected right to ballot access if you're trying to get a particular position or candidate on the ballot. You have a constitutionally protected right to be a part of the process. So even if I don't live in that township, even if I had just shown up to go inside and not bother voters or anything, but just look at how the process is happening and watch and be a poll watcher, I have the right to do that. If I was just an average Joe, not realizing it was election day, and I just wanted to spend some time out at my local township, town hall property, I could have done that. There's no, for her to claim that the resolution is talking about voting, it doesn't talk about that the only thing you can park there for is voting. If it did, there's still a few problems, because no local government can ever override what the Constitution requires. And the Constitution requires that our right to have ballot access, our right to free speech, our right to peaceably assemble, our right to petition the government for a redress of grievances, which is literally what we were doing here, that those rights cannot be abridged or infringed in any way. So even if her little resolution said what she was claiming it said, it would be clearly unconstitutional. But besides that, you can't enforce resolutions on people. Resolutions are like EOs. They're nice. They can handle internal affairs for governmental bodies and agencies, but they can't be used to regulate the people. So,
and this is you getting arrested here?
Yeah, they pretty quickly turned from, I literally had just said to them, just give me the 5 minutes to talk to you about what the law actually says. And they, this guy decided that he needed 3 full-grown men to come and arrest me. And then I'm trying to talk to them.
They didn't do fake handcuffs or just nicely lead you off camera like they did with AOC and Ilhan Omar yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, there was nothing nice about this. This was, they're dragging me away. I'm screaming as it's happening, because it's unconstitutional for them to do what they were doing to me. Even if I was guilty of trespassing in that moment, which I wasn't, they can't do what they were doing there. And so, at any rate, I was screaming, my daughter's in the car. You can't just take me away. My daughter's in the car. My 6-year-old is in the car. They didn't believe me, I guess. I don't know. I'm saying, you know, Doreen, you could see her in the black coat there. She was one of the original petition circulators there that day. She had been in my home. She knew who my daughter was. The other circulator that was there knew who my daughter was. Doreen's yelling, "Give me your car keys so I could, you know, I could be with Emma."
I was going to try to. Do you think this would be a good part to play real fast? A second of just okay. Let's see what's happening here.
I want to vote, and then you can run. You vote at this precinct? No. Okay. So you don't have that. I do, right there. My child is here.
Okay, are you willing to leave?
No, you do not. I'm not.
I just voted. That's all I did, and I signed a petition. So I'm just a bystander, sir.
Please, my child is in the car. I want the. Okay.
Are you willing to leave?
Please, I have a right to leave. I'm going to. You are not acting according to the Constitution. I need your keys for your. I know I can't get them. They won't let me give you my keys. Get her child.
How old is her child?
6.
That's my daughter. Yeah.
And if this is what we have to do, that's okay.
Wow.
Let me sit down. Stop. I need to bend my head down. Stop.
Thank you.
Stop. I'm going to sit down. Let me sit down. Just let me sit down. Let me sit down. Let me sit down. Oh my God, you're hurting me. Let me sit down. You are hurting me. Please stop hurting me. I'm trying to sit down. Please stop doing that.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is how's your daughter doing, and how did she respond to all of this?
Sorry, it's really hard to see that video even.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to watch that. I have a 2-year-old, and she would probably be pretty confused, but I know she'd probably remember that. So I would assume that a 6-year-old would have a hard time watching that. How's she doing?
Well, she is here, so I can see if you want her to answer that herself, but she's traumatized. And the fact that the case, you know, continued until this month, over 20 months, and the way that they violated my rights continuously since then has just been horrifying. But that day, I mean, 3 grown men are shoving me into you can't, depending on the camera angle, you can't necessarily see, but none of them are putting a hand over my head so I don't smash my head on the car. They have 1 or 2 of them shoving me from the one side. And then that one right there he opens the door and he starts grabbing me and pulling me through. So 3 of them are manhandling me to get me into this SUV. At this point, the SUV had been moved because the sheriff's deputies' vehicles were actually the ones blocking ingress and egress for
Did they let you out? I'm confused. Is this a new video?
Nope, it's the same incident. It's a little while later, and I'm in shock. At this point, I don't know fully, like, I'm trying to process what happened. But when I was in the vehicle, they were threatening, once they realized my daughter was in the car and she had witnessed the whole thing, because my car was facing, you know, it was parked, I had backed into the space I was in. Once they realized she was in the car, they were telling me that my daughter was going to be taken by CPS and I would never see her again. I said, let me call my husband to come pick her up. They asked me when he was coming, and I said, well, I don't know. I have to call him to pick her up. And they said, no. They said they were towing my car, which is totally illegal, that they were going to tow my car, that I wouldn't be able to vote. And I was on the ballot myself that day. And I was like, you just literally, you're throwing the entire Constitution and all of our state laws and every rule of ethics known to mankind out the window. Like, what country am I in?
Okay, so did you end up going to jail, or did it all end where we saw it in the video? And then what ends up? I heard your charges were dropped after all that. So can you bring us up to speed on where things stand right now?
Yeah. So that day, they apparently were telling the public that was calling the Allegan County Sheriff's Office that I wasn't charged, I wasn't arrested. I was arrested, but I wasn't booked at the jail. So I was let to go, take my daughter home, and I was able to go vote myself. And then, of course, the very next morning, get medical care for my injuries. But the deputy, he wrote up the ticket initially as a civil infraction, but there is no civil infraction for trespassing. So he modified it illegally before filing it with the court, and he changed it to a criminal misdemeanor. Then the way that it was done, and I was never served with the modified ticket or anything like that. So I was never served with a misdemeanor. They violated my rights left and right. The court wouldn't give me a date on a motion to dismiss until, 2 months in. And I tried to bring up some of the important issues at the arraignment in January. They kept the public out of all the hearings, literally did not let any public in, did not let my husband in. They denied me assistance of counsel outright. I had an attorney in the courtroom with me on February 4th, 2021, and the judge ordered him to leave the courtroom.
Why?
Because he said he didn't want any witnesses. And I'm like, what are you going to do to me? Why do you want no one in here? The judge was live streaming, and he claimed that was the public access, but literally you weren't allowed to record the live streams. He denied any media from coming in.
Wait, why would he say you can't have a witness if he's live streaming?
Well, he immediately deleted every single hearing immediately as soon as it was done. So they live streamed it, made it publicly accessible, but then immediately deleted it and did not let anybody into the courtroom. Now, here's the thing.
Who was in there? You and the judge?
And the prosecuting attorney and the bailiff. Yep.
And wouldn't let you have an attorney, and he said because he didn't want you to have a witness? This seems very weird.
Oh, yeah. I have the transcripts. So on 2 occasions, they wouldn't even let my husband into the building. Literally did not let my husband. The first time in January for my arraignment, they didn't let Lori, who's my assistant, or my husband, or anyone that they knew was a supporter of me. Some people had shown up with us and were at the door. They wouldn't let any of them into the building and almost denied me. They were trying to deny me access.
I mean, I've covered some weird stuff. When I was in TV news, I always thought it was odd that I had to basically, I guess one would say on better days, ask for permission, but on other days, beg for permission to be a reporter in a courtroom to show people what was going on. I always thought that was odd. Like, why do I have to call ahead and get the judge's permission? Why? I mean, I know
it's
I've
not
heard
constitutional. It's literally not constitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court has long said that's
well, in federal court's worse. They won't let you bring a camera at all in federal court. You have to. That's why you get all the sketchpad stuff in federal court. I mean, I always just thought that was very odd, and I also thought it was very odd. Just all the theatrics in courtrooms, like how everybody has to. It feels like you're in a monarchy or something, and everybody's just. Anyway, but this is the weirdest stuff. I haven't heard ever anything like this, so this is very odd to me.
There were many other things that they did. So I have a hearing disability. When people wear masks, I read lips as my main form of communication. And even with, switching to these online hearings or implementing all kinds of COVID policies, even in the midst of that, the Supreme Court of Michigan clearly repeated to the trial courts, like, hey, you have to, if somebody has a disability and they need to be physically present, if they have a hearing disability, if they need to be able to read lips, all those things, they literally said you have to look at that person's individual disability and make a proper assessment so that you're not violating their rights. If somebody doesn't even have a disability, but they don't want to do a Zoom hearing and they want to be present in person, you have to allow them to be present in person. Those are inherent rights that we have. You have the right to see your accuser face to face. You have the right to see the jury face to face. You have the right to see the prosecutor and, the other party if there is one. This case is, the state. So the deputies weren't in the courtroom at that time. You have the right to see the judge face to face. You have the right to be physically present in the courtroom for all essential pieces, pretrial conferences or, settlement conferences, motion hearings, jury selection, all of it. and they were denying me the right to be physically present. They denied me my request for ADA accommodations after already approving it twice in 2 different hearings, denied me. So when I was physically present, they had masks on and they hid behind plexiglass. And so sound was not traveling well and I couldn't read lips. It was awful. So there are so many ways that they denied my rights. I actually filed an interlocutory appeal as the case was pending in spring of 2021. And the circuit court judge doesn't know the law or the Constitution at all, or court rules. I appealed it to the Michigan Court of Appeals, and in a 1-sentence denial, they just said, well, we're not convinced we have to get involved right away. And I'm like, I just gave you literally 75 reasons why case precedent and court rules and the Constitution says you have to get involved. I was devastated. I had 2 different appeals. They did the same thing in both. And so, then the trial court kept moving my trial date. We have a right to a speedy trial. The court moved my hearing. I had 8 different trial dates, and they never had a hearing on the adjournment. So I never got notice and opportunity to be heard that I was going to be denied my right to a speedy trial. Every single time it was just done like the judge just did it and just sent a notice to appear with a new date. Okay, that's not constitutional. So in May, I filed a whole bunch of motions, and the judge wouldn't allow those to be heard on the date that they were properly set and noticed to be heard, moved my trial date yet again, and set the date for my motions, and then the prosecutor filed their own motions to be heard on July 7th, which just happens to be my husband's birthday. I think he actually started to read some of my motions, though, because one of the things I filed a motion on was that I had the right to have open hearings and be physically present and have people in the courtroom. And so he actually did finally allow me and other people to be in the courtroom. It was the first time my husband had been allowed in the courtroom.
Wow.
First time any of them had been allowed in the courtroom. So,
so anyway, how does this all end? How does it end? They just call you one day or send you a letter and they're like, you're off, forget it.
Oh, no, the prosecutor's office was arguing hardcore. They were trying to say I wasn't allowed to subpoena 2 key witnesses. They were trying to say that I was not allowed to present any defense. It was insane. So they were fighting tooth and nail up to that, last moment. The judge finally agreed that they had no legal basis to remove me from the property that day. And so he dismissed both charges. I'm in the process now of getting the rest of the records. I have to get the whole time they're violating my rights and doing this, stretching this out. They kept putting my personal protected information on documents, which is against the court rules. So I've had to make motions multiple times to have my information redacted. So now I have to fill out a bunch of forms to get my personal driver's license number and other identifying information redacted. So I'm in that stage right now, but they do this all the time.
What do you think about how it seems like, from my perspective, listening to people like yourself, that the burden is on the citizen to prove the government is acting unconstitutionally or illegally, which many people do not have the resources to do. What do you think about that system? Because I talk to people like you all the time, and I just sit back and think, how many times is this happening where nobody is fighting back because they can't? Why is the burden on the citizen to catch the government in illegal behavior? Why isn't there somebody else that's catching them? You know what I mean? Like, why don't they have somebody in the government that's like, guys, this is illegal. We can't do this. Or are they supposed to, and they just all are cohorting together, and so nobody cares? I mean, what do you think about that system where it's up to you to go through the process you went through to prove that they're acting illegally? And how do you have a free populace when there's that kind of burden on the average person?
We don't. They have completely dissipated any sort of notion of freedom that we really have. We have to fight to get it back. We have to fight to be able to exercise our God-given liberties, our constitutionally protected rights. And the thing is, the system itself is not broken. The system itself is actually set up right now in a way that can hold these officials accountable. For example, 42 USC section 241, I believe. A lot of people quote the other one. I think the other one is 242, but a lot of people quote the one where they're, just denying your rights outright. But that's related to race and other protected classes. But in the other section, and I said the wrong one, it's 18 USC section 241. In 18 USC section 241, it's actually a crime. It's a federal offense to conspire to deny someone of their rights, period. And depending on the situation, such as if somebody is, if somebody dies because of your conspiracy to deny their rights, you can actually receive the death penalty. But there's significant prison time, available when you have government officials that are denying rights. So, and it doesn't have to be just government officials, but it definitely includes government officials. So there are things out there. It's just that the government agencies responsible for protecting our rights seem to view the concept of law enforcement as the way to keep us all within our own little boxes, that government's allowed to do what it wants until, as you said, the citizens prove otherwise. And the citizens are not allowed to do anything that they want unless they prove that the government has given them explicit permission to do so. We have to retrain ourselves. We have to take our governments back at the local level, at the county level, at the state level, at the federal level. Every level is important in every state, in every community, at local school boards, statewide school boards, the National Department of Education, all of it. We have to take our government back and hold those people accountable. And it's going to take many people being willing to stand up, spread the truth, to read things like the Constitution for themselves, and to recognize that there are going to be, penalties, if you will, or consequences for their courageous actions in doing so. Like, me being physically arrested and, emotionally traumatized and everything else, going through over 20 months of litigation just to get out of the criminal charges. And then I'm going to have to start civil lawsuit against all of these clowns. I mean, it's the only way to try to hold them accountable at this point until we've done enough of the groundwork, that we have enough people in those authoritative law enforcement positions that they're going to start making the arrests, that the prosecuting attorneys, attorney general's offices, that they're going to start prosecuting these offenses. We can do it with the system we have. We just have to realize that the people can't be lazy about it anymore.
This video has been cut short to fly under the community guideline radar on YouTube. So if you want to see the entire conversation, go to one of my other platforms. The links are in the description. The best place to go is AllisonMorrow.locals.com, where you can support my work and become part of my editorial board. We have editorial board meetings there once a week where you can give me feedback from the week before. You can pitch story ideas for the week ahead. They're very small live chats, and so I definitely will see your comment and get your feedback. You also get exclusive content there, so definitely AllisonMorrow.locals.com. But whatever you do, don't stay here on YouTube. If you want the full truth about what's going on around us, you're going to have to go somewhere else.